Hello, this is Doug Marshall. Thanks for checking in. Today I'm talking with Laura Lodge. She's an expert when it comes to distribution for craft breweries. This is worth a listen. Hey, Laura, thank you for joining me today. I mentioned to you before that I saw your presentation a few months ago on distribution for craft breweries, found it to be fascinating. And I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about that and find out more about what goes on in distribution and get some of your insights. And we're trying to keep this short. So let's just start with somebody that is thinking about doing distribution outside of the tap room, either because they're starting a brewery or they have not yet ventured to delivering their product outside of the tap room. What are some of the things people need to be thinking about when it comes to distribution?
Okay, happy to dive in there. Thank you for inviting me to join you. I appreciate that, Doug. I would say that there's three different major pieces to consider. First, the distribution in the last, I don't know, 5 to 8 years has done a lot of consolidation. So what that means for the brewer is that there are fewer distributors to choose from and that they are bigger. And that also means that there are more products that they are carrying and that there is less mind share for any of those specific products. So it's getting more and more difficult to achieve a good distribution partnership with a distributor who actually has the time to focus on you and your product. That also means that you need to build your brand first. So if you're just starting out, it's important for you to bring something that's already built to the table. So they have something already that has legs, say, that they can already speak to. Hey, this is successful. This is a good reason for us to take you on. And the other thing is, when you're talking about third-party distribution, you need to understand and remember that you're not just foregoing your own sales team. You're now needing to bring your sales team to their table to support them, especially because the mind share is sliced so fine. It's hard to get anybody's focus nowadays. So that would be number one. Number two, I would say, back to the point of building your own brand, you need to think about self-distributing. And that is mostly legal in the US now. Most states allow that now. There are still a few that have some really weird hoops to jump through, like selling your product to a distributor to sell it back to your tap room in order to sell it in the tap room. There are still some things like that go on. So be careful about your own state's laws. But first is packaging cost. So your margins are so incredibly much better if you can sell it over your bar with no packaging. So that draft beer in a glass for someone to drink on premise is the best margin you can possibly have. That's like 80, 85%, somewhere up in that zone.
Right.
As soon as you package it, then you have the packaging cost that drags that margin down. So thinking about growler programs keeps the margin up. Thinking about even crowlers keeps the margin up because that's a larger amount of liquid and therefore a higher price that only has, one packaging piece. When you talk about canning and bottling and you're talking about 12 or 16 ounce, you're now talking about a significant packaging commitment. And when you need to put 6-pack carriers around that or case boxes around that, it gets even more expensive to do the packaging. So keep that in mind. But still, selling it out of your tap room, even if it's fully packaged, is a better margin for you than sharing that with the distributor. So build your brand first. And the last piece, just briefly, is e-commerce. Remember that that's now on the table where it wasn't in a lot of ways. So brewers can take advantage of some of that functionality to get their product to consumers, where before that wasn't really an option most places. So instead of third-party distributing, you might want to think about self-distributing and some e-commerce and really work on that website in lots of ways to get your product to the consumer without a distributor.
And talk a little bit about kegs distributing, out of bars and restaurants.
Well, if you're just doing draft for on-premise, which is usually the case, liquor stores will carry some, but not a lot of draft. You still need to put all of the logistics in place. So even if you can buy your own kegs or you can rent kegs from like MicroStar. That's a longer discussion than our 10 minutes. But you still need to have the infrastructure of somebody to do the sales call, somebody to clean the lines if that's the brewer's responsibility, or in this case, the distributor, since you're self-distributing, if that's the responsibility of that entity in your state. In some states, it's up to the retailer, but you need to make sure that you're fulfilling your responsibilities. And you also need to be sure that you're available. If there's a problem with pouring that keg, you're available, and you need to make sure that you're have a good relationship with the account, and you check with the account. Remember, you've got rotation nation to worry about. So you need to be able to replace that product with one of your own if they want something different. There's lots of considerations there, but you still need to have that infrastructure. You need to have the dollies, the refrigeration, the truck or the bicycle, or however you're getting it there, the sales staff and or delivery staff. You just need to be able to service that account. So a whole lot easier to do it inside your own tap room. But self-distributing and doing all that stuff is still very worthwhile, even though there's some headaches in there that don't involve brewing.
So let's say someone has, they are distributing currently in some fashion, but they're frustrated with how it's working. The plan is not working. How do you take them? Can you take people through a review process to say, let's analyze what you currently have and then take a look at what you might want to do differently?
Certainly. And that can be a really long conversation to cover, but I would say that the basic premise of all of it is communication. So you need to make sure you're communicating with somebody in a manner that works for them. You need to make sure it's a time of the day of the week. You need to make sure that that person is in a position to be communicating with you. It may mean that you need a different person on the distribution level. Distribution with the various sales reps, educating them, taking advantage of those opportunities, maybe tag teaming with those reps at accounts. There's lots of ways that you can work through those communication issues, and you should be having goal setting with them every year. So you should be sitting down and saying, here's where our sales look like now. This is what we'd like to see. We're frustrated. How can we work with you? It's that partnership piece and that communication piece. And you need to be on your end. You need to be getting reports at least quarterly, if not monthly, about how that distributor is doing in regard to their sales so that you can track it, follow it, and give them feedback. Because if you wait a whole year to sit down and say, oh my gosh, what happened? Then there's no fixing what already happened. So you need to be on top of it. And the more you're on top of it, the more conscious and on top of it they will be.
Okay. Let's just switch topics real quickly. Tell us a little bit about Start a Brewery and your work there and the mission of that. I think that's a very important thing that you do as well.
Sure. And we're happy to have you as a contributor on our team. I think that Start a Brewery can be really relevant and useful as a resource to everybody, whether you're already in business and the doors are open and you're looking to grow, or if you just opened and you want to go back and see what you missed, in addition to those with a dream. Our purpose with Start a Brewery is to create a resource to offer education and insight and really a path for people who are looking to open their own brewery, to a checklist, if you will, of at plan, act, open, and grow. If you're in planning stage, go to that plan section and look at all of those task list items to see what you should be doing, see what you missed. Our goal is to educate and therefore raise the bar really for new breweries. But at the same time, we're also wanting to lower the barrier to entry for those who don't have the resources or don't have the brewery around the corner that they could shadow or mentor, be a mentee, I would say, or apprenticeship or have an internship, somebody that just really doesn't know where that path begins. So we want to offer that path with this awesome group of resources and contributors. And we have our resource groups, and we're going to have our podcast launching at the beginning of the year. We'll be at CBC. There's a lot going on there. So that's our work, is to really bring a free educational resource to anyone who is involved in the industry.
Well, and I think even for existing breweries, there are a lot of great resources within the Startup Brewery platform. And then finally, before we wrap this up, if somebody is feeling like they need to talk to an individual or somebody that specializes in the idea of distribution, how do people get in contact with you, and how do you like to initiate the contact?
If you're looking for resources, you can reach me at Laura@startabrewery.com, LAURA. If you're looking to do more work or have a contract reviewed for distribution or do some more specific things, customized craft beer programs is the business that I have. That's kind of my umbrella business. I did write a book called Distribution Insight for the Craft Brewer, and that answers a lot of questions and has stood the test of time in terms of best practices and troubleshooting. And that might be a good place to start too. It's an ebook. I think it's $19.99. I mean, it's not super expensive, and it's a good place to start as well. But there's lots of ways to reach me, and I'm happy to either refer you or guide you or work with you, whatever's best.
That's awesome. Maybe the book could be a stocking stuffer. You'd have to
It could be, but it's an ebook, so you'd have to figure that one out.
We'll have to be creative. Well,
yes.
Thank you very much, Laura. It's good to see you. I hope you have great holidays, that everybody's well and healthy, and if you're traveling, that you're safe. And it's a good time of year, but it is busy, as noted earlier.
It is. Happy holidays to you as well, and thank you again for inviting me to join you today.
Well, thank you.